What if I told you that the biggest lessons about life, success, happiness, money, relationships, and peace are not taught in schools, not found in books, and not discovered when you're young, but often realized when it's almost too late? What if I told you that it took me more than 50 years to understand a truth that could save you decades of regret? So before you skip this video, before you scroll away, give me a few minutes of your attention. Because what I'm about to share may change the way you see your entire life. It took me more than 50 years to realize something that I wish someone had told me when I was young. For most of my life, I believed happiness was somewhere in the future. I believed that one day when I earned enough money, bought a bigger house, drove a better car, gained more respect, achieved more success, and reached all my goals, then I would finally be happy. But life has a strange way of teaching us lessons. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it knocks, and sometimes it breaks us completely just so we can understand what truly matters. Looking back now, I realize that I spent years chasing things that didn't matter and ignoring things that mattered most. I spent years worrying about what people thought of me, only to discover that most people were too busy worrying about themselves. I spent years trying to impress people who didn't care and neglected people who loved me unconditionally. I spent years running after success while forgetting to enjoy the journey. And if there is one thing I have learned after more than 5 decades of living, it is this: life moves much faster than you think. When you're young, you think you have all the time in the world. You think tomorrow is guaranteed. You think you'll start exercising next month, save money next year, call your parents later, spend time with your children someday, chase your dreams when the timing is right. But one day you wake up and realize years have disappeared. The days felt long, but the years were incredibly short. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they have unlimited time. Time is the only currency you spend without knowing your balance. You know how much money is in your bank account. You know how much fuel is in your car, but you never know how much time is left in your life. And because people don't know the value of time, they waste it. They waste years holding grudges. They waste years waiting for perfect conditions. They waste years complaining, comparing, procrastinating, and postponing happiness. It took me over 50 years to realize that life isn't waiting for you to be ready. Life is happening right now. Another lesson I learned is that nobody is coming to save you. This may sound harsh, but it is incredibly liberating. Many people spend their lives waiting for motivation, waiting for support, waiting for opportunities, waiting for someone to believe in them, waiting for circumstances to improve. But winners understand something different. They understand that responsibility is power. The moment you stop blaming your parents, your boss, your past, your luck, your circumstances, and your failures, and start taking full responsibility for your life, everything changes. Your future begins the moment your excuses end. It took me decades to understand that confidence is not something you get before taking action. Confidence comes after taking action. Most people wait until they feel confident to start. Successful people start before they feel ready. Another truth that took me years to understand is that people care far less about you than you think. When I was younger, I worried constantly about being judged. I worried about making mistakes. I worried about looking foolish. I worried about what others would say. Then I realized something. Everyone is fighting their own battles. Everyone is focused on their own problems. Most people are too busy thinking about themselves to spend much time thinking about you. The freedom that comes when you stop seeking approval is unbelievable. You stop living according to other people's expectations and start living according to your own values. It took me more than 50 years to realize that peace is far more valuable than proving a point. When I was younger, I wanted to win every argument. I wanted people to know I was right. But wisdom taught me something different. Not every battle deserves your energy. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Sometimes walking away is not weakness but strength. Sometimes protecting your peace is more important than protecting your ego. Another lesson life taught me is that money solves problems, but it doesn't create happiness. Don't misunderstand me. Money matters. Financial freedom matters. Being able to provide for your family matters. But once your basic needs are met, happiness comes from different things. It comes from meaningful relationships. It comes from purpose. It comes from health. It comes from gratitude. I've met wealthy people who were miserable and ordinary people who were deeply fulfilled. The difference wasn't money. The difference was perspective. One of the greatest realizations of my life was understanding that comparison is a thief. There will always be someone richer than you, smarter than you, more attractive than you, more successful than you. If you compare yourself to others, you will never feel enough. The only person you should compare yourself to is the person you were yesterday. Progress, not perfection, is what matters. Another thing that took me decades to understand is that failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Every successful person has failed more times than most people even try. The people we admire are not special because they never fell. They are special because they got back up every time they fell. Fear keeps more people poor, unhappy, and unsuccessful than failure ever will. Most people are not destroyed by failure. They are destroyed by never trying. One day I realized that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite fear, and that realization changed everything. It also took me years to understand the importance of health. When you're young, you sacrifice your health to make money. Then later, many people sacrifice their money trying to recover their health. Your body is your first home. If you don't take care of it, where will you live? Exercise, sleep, healthy food, and peace of mind are not luxuries. They are necessities. Another lesson I learned is that gratitude changes everything. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring your problems. It means appreciating what is good while working on what can be improved. The happiest people are not those who have the most. They are those who appreciate what they already have. I spent years chasing happiness only to discover that happiness often comes from simple things. A conversation with someone you love, a peaceful morning, a healthy body, a good book, a sunset, a quiet mind. Life's greatest treasures are usually not expensive. Another thing that took me more than 50 years to understand is that your habits create your future. Your life is not determined by what you do once in a while. It is determined by what you do consistently. Small habits may seem insignificant today, but over time they become your destiny. Reading 10 pages a day may not seem like much. Exercising for 30 minutes may not seem life-changing. Saving a little money each month may not seem important. But years later, these small actions create extraordinary results. Success is rarely about giant leaps. It is usually about small steps repeated consistently. One of the most painful lessons I learned is that some people are only part of your story, not your future. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life forever. Some people come into your life to teach you lessons. Some come to help you grow. Some come to show you who you don't want to become. Holding on to the wrong people often prevents you from meeting the right people. Another truth that took me decades to understand is that forgiveness is not for the other person. It is for you. Carrying resentment is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer. Forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay. It means you're no longer allowing the past to control your future. One day I realized that life becomes much lighter when you let go of what you cannot change. It took me more than 50 years to realize that discipline beats motivation every single time. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. Motivation is based on feelings. Discipline is based on commitment. If you only work when you feel motivated, you will never reach your full potential. But if you learn to take action even when you don't feel like it, there is almost nothing you cannot achieve. Another lesson I learned is that success without purpose feels empty. Many people spend their entire lives climbing a ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. Before chasing success, ask yourself why you want it. Make sure your goals align with your values. Make sure the life you're building is actually a life you want to live. As I reflect on more than 50 years of life, there is one final lesson I want to share. Life is not a rehearsal. This is it. There is no practice round. There is no rewind button. There is no guarantee of tomorrow, so tell people you love them. Take care of your health. Chase your dreams. Learn new skills. Take risks. Travel if you can. Laugh more. Worry less. Be kind. Be grateful. Forgive quickly. Live fully. Because one day you'll either have reasons or results. You'll either have memories of a life you truly lived or regrets about a life you were too afraid to embrace. And if there is one sentence I wish I had understood decades ago, it is this. The quality of your life is determined not by what happens to you, but by how you choose to respond to what happens to you. It took me more than 50 years to learn that lesson. If you learn it today, you may save yourself the next 50.